Well, it's an anniversary. We had Canada Day, and then we're going to have Independence Day. Bye-bye, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, yes, sir, 3 bags full. One for my master, one for my dame, and one for a little boy who lives down the lane. Sing song, 6pence a pocket full of rye. 4 and 20 little boys baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the boys began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to sit before the king? The king was in the counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out her clothes. Long came a blackbird and pecked off her nose. Bye-bye, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, yes, 3 bags full. One for my master and one for my dame. None for the little boy who lives down the lane. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got, and home he ran as fast as he could caper. There his mother bound his head with vinegar and brown paper. Sing a song of 6pence a pocket full of rye. 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. And wasn't that a dainty dish to sit before the king? King was in counting house, counting out his money. Queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. Maid was in the garden and hanging up her clothes. Along come a blackbird and pecked off her nose. I gotta quit that. Okay, I quit it. Well, it's about time. Says the text of Against the Galileans. does not survive. That's an interesting term, Galileans. It's like Nazarenes. And to try to connect it with Nazarites and with vows, when they try to get you, two words mean different things. So, but this says the text of against the Galileans does not survive. You know, truth fears no investigation. And that's why you just gotta despise these people. Because, see, it works. It's like this. Say you got a sheriff who gets into trouble, but it's not larceny or something or whatever. He might be running around doing whatever. But as far as like being able to say, I'm going to be for the local. And you don't have a posse around him that's taking care of him anyway. So catch him out, he had a beer, and he could say he banged some stuff up, but he hadn't hurt no people or nothing. And then he has the audacity to say, you know what? I don't care what the other you say. I don't even care what the governor says. I'm just going to support the local right here. What needs to happen. Got a bunch of stuff going on. Paperwork, pencil pushers, all this stuff. I'm just saying, think. And, see, I'm going to let him be governor. Because that way, when the sheriff says, hey, man, stay out of town, he'd be like, all right. But when they get you to handcuff you to begin with, the fuzzy wuzzies, and they played chess 100 years, you and me, and but this is Porphyry, the text of against the Galileans, and Cyril of Alexander survived, but it's funny because he's the one, he's ended up that killed the other Christians at Alexander, Egypt. They get them playing one another, and find out, they look at you and we find out, they don't like either one of you. The text of against the Galileans does not survive, probably being destroyed in an anti-pagan edict. This will be after Constantine. The interesting thing, though, certainly before Justin, and this is not that Justin's bad, but if you find texts and other things before then, and if they've been put up, that's the thing. Just don't cling to one. If they do find something, hey, look at it. Truth fears no investigation. And the thing about it, you want the most damnable evidence and sit there and laugh at it. That's what you want. Why not, man? Put your sword up, march. But yeah, that's what it's all about. There ain't no frowns, but when they get rid of it, it has clues in it. I found that out. What is known of it comes from the writings of Cyril Alexander. And well and below, he talked about it. The text of Against the Galileans does not survive, probably being destroyed in an anti-pagan edict. 448, 529. What is known from it comes Cyril of Alexander, who quoted it at length. Refutation, that was finished either. So it was a letter against these Galilean Christians, these people, because they didn't match. But when you find out that he's fighting and saying, well, at least the other ones, they have like allegedly some history and they're meeting in a place, why don't you just get along with them? So they're trying to figure out why. So, and yeah, he's not schooled in the schooling of the asp. So the multiple fragments of another 10 books also survived. Cyril claimed that it was one of the most important anti-Christian works that had ever been written, and that it was widely considered to be irrefutable. While Baronius, it's one thing to be Aeneas, another thing to be leanness. There's leanness, big leanness, and there's big lines. Helped it is even greater work than the critiques of Porphyry of Tyre. And it got against the Galileans. But see, what's interesting is Porphyry at the beginning was a flavor of Christian. You learn from reading. And he even gets fed up with them because they're fighting about things. And he's like, well, I'm just going to listen to these people. And Porphyry, but Julian versed on other logic from what he was being told, wrote another paper. And Theodore of Mopsuestia and Celsus had a paper. Porphyry had a paper. Other people had papers. But only a few remain. It's interesting what I see in there. And what they're saying, and you got other people saying. They can all be answered. At the very least, both Porphyry and Julian were speaking, thinking, talking heads of the period. So it's always good to have a critic. But what Plato is Plato, and what's later, even Augustine had opinions. And what is Socrates? And if Julian knows that his people were actually people, and not the gods, and they all looked up to God. It's interesting. The discussion came to Confucius. And you have a guy that comes to talk to Confucius, and even Confucius being, the Greek that goes back into those islands. How far back? Thousands of years. Way before the turn of the century. And, or the millennia. And, Confucius says, no, man, I don't. He didn't associate those with gods. So then the guy comes back and says, see, Confucius says he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in gods. He never said that. He said he don't, what is your definition? Are you saying that the statues are gods? That's why when the critique happens, this might be my last one. And when the critique happens, there won't be many tokens of characterizations of idol worship or what's another one? Or speaking to ancestors, whether you want to call it praying to saints or asking or leading guidance, or burial practices even. Or births, or days, or holidays. Or any of those typical things that people talk about. Where they maybe honor one day more than the other. Or they may venerate some great-grandfather that's not my great-grandfather and I think it's odd. They got to ask themselves, why do they feel so attacked? Leaving them miserable, angst. So if his idea of Platonic tradition, end quote, 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 Platonic tradition is not the same as Julian's, who doesn't have that view of whatever they're trying to call Platonic. Different. Well, it's different. Well, you can read minds. There's a mind reading going on right here. And the people continue to bash and change. If they can't bash it, they'll just change it. They'll say it's something else. As it was the Greeks whose words were a shadow of the truth of Moses. And it's interesting because even after all their hero, ancestor thoughts and things they remember, there's that statue over there to like the God, the unknown God, a God that will come. It's like leaving room open at the table. There's a seat open. Leave it light on for you. There's Tom Baudet. Pollinating familiares. Rare homograph. Diphthong types. Homograph diphthongs. It's interesting how syllables work. You know what's the difference between a code, or a language, or a vocabulary? It's just a key. Yet Julian claims that men inherently know of the existence of God. He then goes on to even admit that how the Greeks, how they view the delegates, the gods, delegates of the Creator God. That's how the Greeks view the gods. Yet they deny them. And it's not that the other ones denied them. That's not what's been said. It said they denied the existence of it, that they were the God. Why can't it be like that? Because the other guy over here trying to get them fighting, they hate both of you. And instead he believes, he just said they were delegates of the Creator God, and that those people, he says that they were different people responsible for the different peoples. And that's what he was calling the other gods, peoples. Even Julian was admitting that. They get you fighting. Yeah, when the critique happens, you know that I'm not going to be over the little stuff. See? And you got to go. Right, you do what you want to do. But if I was, I would be right there about 2,000 years ago, about 2,300 years ago, until about 1,700 years ago. Now I just can't right there. And it's just a basic thing. He expounds the idea. If the Jewish God, them people down there that says this, and they are doing their thing, then why haven't they accomplished as much as some other ones, such as the Greeks, Phoenicians, or even the Egyptians? Just asking questions. But he admitted God and a Creator God. And left room for the unknown God. And then he started talking about what was going on from an outsider, saying it don't even add up. He criticizes the belief that Jesus is the prophet that was predicted by Moses and Isaiah. As Jesus, supposedly being the Son of God, is what they're saying, was not even descendant from Judah. And says that idea of a God who claimed to be the sole God he created, being equal to him, was not even descended from Judah. That Nazarene text, the Gospel of the Nazarenes, there's different books written as a Hebrew formula. There's a few missing things, added things, little few different things. The whole first chapter, not to say it wasn't there, it might have been there and not putting back right or whatever, but it's not there in that text. And right up there, the Nazarenes from Galilee, not the Nazarites' vows, but the Nazarenes from Galilee were he said that the Galileans up there also disobey the different words as they revere tombs of the dead, because the other people said that wasn't supposed to happen. Wouldn't even want you to bury your children or your folks. Referred to gravesites as places of impurity. That's what the other ones told them. Then he brings up other practices abandoned by these Galileans, such as other celebrations and circumcisions, and even Passover. Wondering why they had abandoned the practices, because the other ones were saying that's how they were. They didn't understand that the Greeks are not the one that said crucifying. Because the Greeks had it written on their heart anyway. They were doing it. They just need to be reminded, going as far to claim that Moses and Abraham was further from the Galileans and was closer to Greek culture, with the whispers in the ear. And Justin said that. It's amazing. You just have little bits of the argument and who's zooming who. Because the Galileans suddenly stopped sacrificing, but the Greeks were sacrificing and sending sacrifices. I think that's the learning point, that all the cultures had a feeling of harvest time, thankful for the rain, thankful for the storm, and doing it once a year and having a party. Call it Thanksgiving, call it Passover, call it Tent Festival, call it whatever. And they just got together and said thank you for the crops and the times. It's the commonality. But anastylosis it's interesting. You see a picture, and then miles away, it's almost like the same mold. And it's written right there in black and white. Rules may change. And the plaster, and the gypsum, and the rebar, and the anastylosis. And whether you see in this or this, and what time period, whether it's a mosaic or a more apparent structure looking piece, remember location and soldiers, or something like these, whether it's vocabulary or a structure or a paper or a papyri or a leather or an item, and pay attention to anastylosis. You know, some things are a lot more precise. It reminds me of the Coe. Said he'd walk around his sites with Roman glass in his hands and leave it for further exploration. Years later, said he didn't do it that time, but just the joke shows the level of thought that would go into something. but the period of time. And if I already know it's into the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century with Justin, but if it's being said something else, throw some dirt on it, you just got to always check yourself. Because when you go, whether you dig that up or it's on a wall, this is a time period that's not, and philosophy-wise, it's just not other time periods. And places. Whether it's stone, glass, and even bone. Because one man's prayer cup is another man's curse. And I guess in the sepulcher, you got more than 9 lives because there's 32 paths of wisdom at a time. And it's nice that somebody would move it to Abram, to Latin. And when you see live action, a bunch of arrow points, you think, well, they've been bombarded with fiery darts and a bunch of glossing broken ware. But even then, with broken ware, you just, if you're not there. But when you see this, there's obviously they're trying to tell you a story. Something went down. Something. As if they had left several things. Some large, some small. Or stone. That's Argos. There on the islands. Like shot off from Turkey. It's kind of like over there in that other peninsula. Pollinating familiar. The rare homograph diphthongs. Because even anastylosis comes in many fashions. The dithyramb, anastylosis, and the variety and types. And the anastylosis for rework with stucco and the process thereof. Whether it's in Crete, over there, Indonesia, Malay, archipelago, or on another penis. Got the Pocoli, the Yucatan Pocoli peninsula on the Yucatan. Belize, or any area, or anywhere. The church and the land on which it stands was a gift of Miss Sarah S. Brayton. The gift, a splendid gift. The new First Congregational Church on Rock Street. It was admission, an opening, special invitation only. The pipe organ was not up square, but otherwise the structure was ready to be seen. It's a modern variation of the Gothic. Its square Normanesque tower has flamboyant Gothic windows and is crowned by Gothic pinnacles. Norman itself is flanked by small towers of Romanesque type. Guard towers, the body of the church itself, is strictly architectural standpoint. The buttresses and the transitions between the Norman and Gothic, the substance development Gothic. Slender, mullioned windows for archers and rise high through siestry of the auditorium. And it goes on to tell you, supported, hammered beams, vaulted ceilings, buttressed without and within, and as above and as below, supporting the vault, and big timber, she said. It was small rooms under the towers and in the vestibules, full of English oak. I hope there weren't no castratis there. Little eunuch soprano. Got big wood, big stones. It was a gift. In 1913, 14, been around since looking like 12. It's just a gift. A lot of wood. Just a gift. New church, 1912. I gifted up right there. Look at that spot. That girl got curves. Just a gift. Remember the old Muppet Show? Sitting up there in up high in the balcony, little balcony domes. The staircase going up. And up high. Just a gift for the church. There's a dispute on Broadway. And we took our horses about the same year, 1912, 1910, 1915. From the cavalry. Yeah. It's like syllables. So the difference between the language, the vocabulary, and the written language, just knowing by, could be lines and dots, could be pictures, it could be a combination of signs to make a syllable, to make a sound. It's similar with Japanese, and they'll draw the pictures and have the ba, the lam, and they add them together, and they have pictures. Then in other texts, allegedly a bunch of them got destroyed by the friars, Praetorian guards, for fear, which is interpreted as Balaam, as a sound. Because they go and they find, and they look for, when you learn the culture, they'll say, hey, what do you call that thing? They'll say, that's a Balaam, or that's a og, or that's a oo, or that's a e, or that's a dat. And that's a cat. And that's a gat. A gatto, or a cat. Or Balaam. Or a Balaam. Or just all the sounds together with the little bottom over here with the sound of ma. But as much as they say we got it all figured out in this, anastilopesis is a thing. And even if we get the vocabulary right, it's the culture, it's the philosophy. Sounds and syllables. It's a xylogram. You got monograms, hydrograms, grams of different pictures. It's a mile on the bottom and the mile on the bottom. And the Balaam is that big drawing. And just the Balaam. But if you have a separate ba, it'd be ba. If you have a separate lamb, it'd just be Balaam. Balaam. So some portion of this is only lamb. Balaam, ma. So if that's big, turn that on its side, it kind of looks like that. So the lamb is these bird symbols over here with the dots, because the ba doesn't have it. But no matter the stucco and where it's, but if it's in rock or if it's a high wind and what's in the ear, whether it's feathers, whether it's a sephram, with the feathers on his feet and his hips and around, and he was flying, and the culture, yeah, that would probably scare a bear. And if I used the syllables or sounded out noises, you could just draw pictures. Kami-sama, wa anada, okuzen no sabutsu, tumat wa or mason, kono koro wasurane kudasa, yoku, kai kudasa. And they have a bunch of syllables. Kami-sama, that could be kami. Be kami is one big symbol, or just two separate ones. Kami. Sama. Where's the key? Or if it's the peanut, the sine. The Yucatan Peninsula or the Sinai Peninsula. Or Turkey. They got Turkey Peninsula too. said, then each of them went home, while Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. And the Mount of Olives, they say that's about a day's journey, a Sabbath's journey from Jerusalem. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. So the temple is pretty close, but the Mount of Olives is a day's journey. The people came and he sat and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought him a woman that had been caught. And he ends up saying, he said, listen, they brought here, asking me what I thought. I didn't have nothing to do with this. He said, neither condemn them. It'd be my advice, though, you stay away from them. They stirring up stuff. He said, go ahead. Go get on it. I don't know what you're talking about, Master. You who are froggy. So they all left. He was standing alone with a woman. Said, what? What happened? Said, nobody here. They all left. He said, well. Even Augustine noticed that even the Greek copy from Egypt had been changed from the other Greek copy. And similar attitudes towards Betharon and Shira, because under the impression, similar to Justin Martyr and others, list that some men had removed the passage. It was adulterating. He saw the adultery. The adultery, he saw it because they were saying that the girls would get out of hand, thinking pretext, that preventative crime. He said, I guess that's what they were trying to do. Just pollinating familiares, very copy adultery. Drawing in the sand. What say ye? I mean, for one reason or another, just to save paper, when you clearly see that there's a bunch of Greek written on pages and been blotted out, have other backwards writing written on top of it, sometimes different. What do you think? If it's known, like that for me, Rescriptus, and parchments that's been reused, hey, it's called anastylosis in paper form. Just reuse it, rewrite it. It's one thing to have a sagging anus. Yeah. It's another thing to have sagliness. And they even rub it in your face. It says the manuscript, once upon a time, noted, were originally contained the whole of both the Old and the New Testament. And there's people that's written on it at the notes. Thing is, the notes, it's like the brownie. You want it good and black. And whether you're doing pictograms, monograms, trigrams, ramorams, with the diphthong shuffle under the disco light. Needs to be a dark ink, spaced out, whether it's dots or lines. That red ink is faded. Browner inks, they fade. Whether it's the titles or notes. It says, however, it's possible to upper margins what's contained titles in red ink. And it's even harder to find it under ultraviolet light. It's completely faded away. Washed away in a bad way. But there's evidence and lots of repurposed paper. Other questions and controversies dealing with law. The death penalty for the lady or the drawing in the sand. It's one thing to get spanked and have saintliness. But here's the saintliness. The codex. Just written all over. Washed out the Greek. Sagilenus to Sagilenus. To Saintlinus. Pericopes. Adultery. To Sagilenus. Pericope. Pericope. Sagilenus. Adultery. But Augustine wasn't going to get tied up in the idols or talking about this or trying to read your minds. He just says, listen, somebody took it out because of something. And that's how he would want to be treated if he got accused of something else. And don't even get caught up, idols, rosary beads, sure. The greatest chanting over and over recitals of prayer that said it could be done from those people or those people or those people. But yeah, whatever you want to do, between you, you'll know if you take it too far in your head. That's a thing. To influence others, but you learn. That's the thing about a childlike faith. If you don't even know or don't even ask questions, you don't need to defend your thoughts. There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely great. I don't suspect you'll be any further behind than anybody at the end of the day. But for those with questions, it's good to present all the Porphyries and the Julians and the Celsus and whatever they throw and just throw them back. And take your Agamemnon, take your Plato, Socrates, Euripides, Alexander the Great, Archimedes, and tell them, you telling lies. They've been doing this from day one. A symbol C type codex. Tischendorf published the New Testament in 1843 and the rest Old Testament in 1845. Taste the rainbow and the differences. The torn condition of many leaves, the faded state of the ink, and the covering of the original writing made the decipherment an extremely difficult task. Those rascals, some portions undecipherable. In presentation, similar to the Alexandrinus, as large capitals are frequent. The margin of the Gospels contain, notes, Ammonian sections. Eusebius worked off origin, but the notes and Euthian chapters are missing. Also similar to the Syrian. But even Syrian, you want to know which Syrian, which Aramaic Syrian, and which Syrian. And in different points. It's like that Nazarene gospel. It adds a few things. It doesn't have Matthew's first couple chapters. The devil's in the details, but there's plenty here. So that backlit Greek writing from all over these Corinthians, Smyrna, Sardis, Turkey and Ephesus, and these Lesbos islands, over to Scorpion Island. There could be 2,500, 6,000 islands. It's a honeypot. Greeks all over the place. And on the west side of Rome. And on the east side of China. There's a Scorpion Island. Scorpios. All this Argo culture, the Saronic Islands, is an archipelago in Greece, named after Saronic. Dokos, Hydra. The Saronics belong to the Greek administration, Attica. That's a larger map. Yeah. Thousands of years up until it's about the Battle of Salamis. Then Alexander went in afterwards. But out here, Jason, Dokos Island, Greek administration, Attica. Some names defeated the Persians in the Battle of Salamis. Dokos, Christi, Spestus, Poros, Hydra, Aegina, the Aegeus, Salome. So all over Asia, and even up into the Netherlands. And they preferred to call way over the Malay archipelago with Netherland interests, even after 1900. The adoption of Malay or Malaysians to Indonesians, and with the dropping of a syllable or two, we forget the Malaysians or the many lesions, with the emphasis on Asia instead of Asia, the many islands. We'll forget that there's the many Asians. There's a mixed up bunch. But even from this area, the Greek was written. But the slight sounds of forget amnesia, the Malay groups of the islands, the mixed up bunch. Mixed up bunch. And this is before the turn of the millennium. This is still the language spoken. And same people groups remembering much of Hindu, Buddhist culture. But as of now, it's changed thrice more. The Netherlands interest to keep the prefix word Mele is in Milesians, or it's a compound of Indus and Nessus, meaning the Indian islands. Many islands, many peoples. Now relayed primarily as Indonesia. But Netherlands, you could argue that the Netherlands would be responsible for wanting to call Indo, or the Indo-Europeans, and claiming, but Malay is a nod to the other many Asians cultures. And to further change it from Melanesia to Indonesia to Indonesia would be another turn. And then everybody forgets where island they came from. They're all right there living together. Analysis regarding the I, the O, the I, the O, the as, the diphthongs. However, I and O and U can occur in open syllables. And sometimes it's to make the sound as A or I is a breathing out or breathing in. Such as Kuka, excise. It doesn't say that, I'm just saying that. A Palau island, or Palu. Words with a phonetic diphthong. Words with a phonetic diphthong and a closed syllable, such as by, good, or loud, see. It's syllables. Now this is just sound. But then learning how to read it would be like counting dots and lines. Therefore treats phonetic diphthongs, A, I, O, I, sequence of monophthongs. So syllables and words. So from Malaysia, Malaysia, Indonesia, to Indonesia, and you'll forget Hidong is not Hadong. It's interesting over here that the language now from Greek to obviously backward writing, and the subject matter is interesting. It's the you dang, I can tell you dang, Alika. Philosophy and more. Based on a published version, there's not many of them, folks. The you dang, but there comes in all colors and types. It consists of parts of law dealing with maritime, marriage, and trade law. Malika is in 6 parts. It's even a falsification on sometimes, and judgments. So from Hindu and Buddhist to a Islamic culture causing serious entry in the eyes of the others and punishment, classic Islamic law. So from Malaysia, Indonesia, discussing crimes conform with those of classic law. Provisions for crimes punishable with taser when the crime lacks conditions for hudud, kissing between a man and a woman, gambling, giving false testimony. Example for provisions, marital jurisprudence, whether witnesses and conditions and rulings, subject matter, are contained in different sections and provisions. Also identify types of goods allowed in trade, as well as those prohibited, such as alcoholic drinks, dogs, pigs, and rice wine. The you dang, me dang, Malacca. From Malay to Indonesia to Indonesia. Even prohibitions and punishments for using yellow clothes and wearing golden anklets. And it's been continued and rewritten and expounded on. And everybody, they don't like it when you have Passover on a day or an hour that they don't. And they even subliminally have blind jokes. It says homographs in the syllables. For example, parang is used both for paran, war, and paran, blind. Originally had 4 values, but in many dialects today, standard Malay, it has 6. Many words are commonly pronounced variably with either I, U, or EO. Relatively few words require a mid-vowel. I. It's interesting though, and even in the notes. Like you got a 12th verse, so Micah over in the chapter, but it says 12. But there's like 1, 2, or 3 differences in the manuscripts from the Greek to different Greek to the Hebrew versions. A reference of Zechariah 9:10, the horns of Ephraim and Judah both mentioned, found in the notes. It's good to have options. Truth feareth no investigation. And that's a problem with work such as this. Whether I'm on one side or the other, present both sides. See, if an author says this word, or one word, or a Christian word, and don't understand, there's Christians that hate one another. They think their other ones are wrong. And then you got another one come in and say, well, no, that's a Christian, that's a Christian, that's a Christian. Well, and you find out that the ones that are saying that, they don't agree with it one of me anyway. So this whole area and over more of all these islands. It's what's kicking. It says, unable to find information about the sale of the Encyclopedia Britannica, the rights, and the publishing rights, and the editor rights, and early rights, in 13, 14, 15. It's known in 12. They'll give you a line. That's where I was at. They announced it was going to go digital in the ROM style and this and that. But the rights have been sold. And I have not clicked on a social media site and going on 2 months or more. But here's the thing. When did an anchor turn into a trident? And when did a trident turn into an anchor? And when did the devil get a pitchfork? And when did a trident turn into a dragon? And when did the devil get a pitchfork? Who gave a devil a pitchfork? Is that in Britannica? I haven't been to a social media site, but I've got it cataloged. And it was sold to you know who, and I know because that's what got me kicked out of the court. I told the Queen, I said, listen, to your gesture, I said, you're selling it. Don't interfere in free enterprise and capitalism and private trade, private sales and stuff. The only time it would be a hostile takeover. It was bought and his own, publishing, copyright, editing, by the nemesis, the Vatican. You might wonder, what's the difference? Rome. So, 2 points for anybody that pulls it up, because it's been scrubbed. I've got it, though. It might have been 404, but I've got at least the heading. It'll still show up. But I'm not going to public social media to go find it. I got it logged. I can't remember the year. 13, 14. Because I made a big stink about it. I said, one time you should have pitched in and just anteed up. Just to keep it or give it to another private person. Not let the Vatican absolutely get it on paper. But that's what I said. I said, that's Britannica. Used to be a mainstay. And under that heading is Webster's, Merriam-Webster's. Also the whole World Book Series. And with paper rights, they can do what they've been doing. It's been a constant onslaught for 100 years, though. You can search it out from the 10th edition. It's changed so much. And I don't know who to get next. We're going to throw everybody under the bus. I'm going to lead the pack. But when listen, a woman can do a good imitation of handling ideas, but then she will not be thinking properly as a woman, he once said. Did this lawyeress check her hairdo before coming to court? If she did, she's a distracted lawyer. If she did not, she is one distorted woman. From the 40s, Williamson attended Winchester private school and Cambridge University. And I don't know exactly why I got kicked out of court. It could be because I was talking to Benedict. He stepped down after discussions about Linus. It's good to have, like I said, even Porphyry, Tertullian. Truth fears no investigation, but at the same time, Williamson had been excommunicated. But he was just busy because, see, it's paper. It's what's written on paper, what they have rights to do. And Benedict said, hey, you know what? You just come on back in, baby. And for camaraderie, we will still view you as an illicit act, but on paper you're still good. See, here's the thing. Williamson told his followers that he will ordain others in Brazil, others in Brazil, and others. And I admire him. I think everybody needs to listen to him, because on 90%, great conversations, history, this and that and the other, but their core doctrine. You know, this is what drove Abraham. I'm no Abraham Lincoln fan, but this is what even Abraham Lincoln saw. It's just intolerance of liberty, because the philosophy's different. It's the come together. It's the for the many. It's the control. It's the hatred of liberty. Because fundamentally, they believe, core philosophy, it is to be heaven on earth, to beat your swords into plowshares, that we are to bring in everything. See, but this is human flesh. And who's going to be the one bringing it in? That's why it's separated our desires, morals within ourselves, and a governing authority. Jerome, this has been going on since hath God said. Samuel said, you want a king, you'll get a king, and then he'll come in and you won't even have to tie you up. They'll just have his way with your sons and daughters, and you'll bring them a cold beer and a sandwich for intermission. And Williamson said that he would be brought back on better terms under Benedict, said that we would consider it an illicit organization. If he continues, and he says he's going to, and it's interesting when he the SSPX, and it's in the news today, and been in the news, and they're still there. And the thing about it, as far as they try to push others because of the absurdities of the other side, that's like waking up the next day with the fuzzy handcuffs on you. But Lefebvre got out, and there was others, but Williamson, rest his soul, I'm not judge, he'd be him, but I'm not judge. But he said he would continue to ordain, and continued. And if you can speak Polish or Hungarian, I don't know, what does he speak? Russian. Look him up. There's not many, but some of it ordinance. The Stabnecki. And what's great, they're to your face. He says, if you're a Protestant, you don't allow to take another breath. You don't deserve to live. Love it, love it, love it. I love the fire he's got. He's dead wrong, but I love the fire he's got. But growing up as PX Pius and seeing the absurdities, he was excommunicated. These are others. This is just one dick. Once, twice, 3 times a baby. A lady. And he's got excommunicated. But these are the ones. See what's going on behind for tomorrow. And I admire him. The lady had her hair up, hair down, focused, and thought it'd be best. But the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, separate from flesh and blood authority, that's the issue. Is Christ going to be Christ, or are you going to try to be Christ, mister? And he ordained, like I said, several, and they're still going on. It's still going on. And there was some accostas. That's a good name for Acosta. They're going to accost you. They can read minds. And these guys are the same as the scripture lawyers in Sanhedrin. Same group. And if they're, not that I'm going to throw them out, but they're allowed to have a voice. They're allowed to have a voice. And see, by Leo saying, all right, we'll shake hands, but we'll still consider you an illicit act. On the other hand, one has to embrace the other side. Because the argument is, if one extreme is going to be considered an illicit act, we can call another thing an illicit act, but we can hug you all. But the SSPX pious group, you need to look at it a little more. Continuing to perform consecrations, Archbishop Vigiano, and describe Pope Francis as a false pastor and a servant of Satan. Now, I'm all for preserving the Latin, just so somebody can read it later. There's still lots of things not transcribed. And he told Harold, the Second Vatican Council is the religion of man put in the place of God. Deep down, what it means is it's a new religion, dressed up to look like Catholic religion, but it's not Catholic religion. The Society of St. Pius X was founded by Lefebvre, broke with the church when the Archbishop illicitly ordained 4 bishops against John Paul's express wishes. The bishops were excommunicated. Well, they shouldn't be guilty of the Father's crime. Get rid of Lefebvre and see about the bishops. I guess they argued. He was educated. He was interesting. I enjoyed the conversations. But as much as they rally against wrongs, they still bring bondage by playing God. Because in essence, he says that Second Vatican Council wasn't a religion of God. It was of man. But they want to have God-like authority. That's exactly what he said on earth. That's his will. That's doctrine. That's catechism. That's everything. I won't argue with idols and beads and buzzers and heirlooms. But philosophy, and they own Britannica and Webster and World Books and editing and copying the Vatican. That philosophy. This is a romantic picture. This is Charles Gibson, Margaret, She just found all those Syriac letters at St. Catherine's. Her husband didn't live long. It was a beautiful relationship. While others of the 3rd or 4th century argued that Julian the Apostate was useful for arguing the work was intended as pagan propaganda. But oh, player is playing. And if the SSPX wasn't on that team, then after 3307 years, everything necessary has been done. The table is set. Welcome to the banquet, ladies and gentlemen. Step right up. Come and get your balloons. And we are sitting at it. The Feast of Moshiach, being served with the ancient wine, the Leviathan, and the wild ox. All that is left is for us to open our eyes and see. So Rabbi Sneerson, he says, Metatron and Sarhaptim are the exact same entity as the Messiah himself, the Metador, who is called Yeshua, the Prince of the Presence, and Metronon. Metrodon equals Prince of the world. Lucifer, the light bringer, says the hidden, infinite aspect of God is called the infinite, Insof, without end. The name was understood as a proper one of the hidden aspect of God. The Sephirat, not Insof, is the God of the Bible. The Sephirat is the Elohim, kind of like, is the God of the Bible, not Insof. Therefore, Kabbalists can justify claim that Insof is nowhere mentioned in the Bible. The Bible refers only to Sephirat, the knowable God, not the hidden God. So like Elohim created, God created Jesus. But the Insof is another one. So since Keter is androgynous, because, listen, here's the thing. You need the woman too. To other side of the all-masculine mean one, the lover one. But it's unknown. Since Keter is androgynous, the first two Sephrim emit from him. These are Chokmah and Bina, located just below Keter. At this point, it should be clear that Jesus Christ is not Bina, the result of an androgynous sexual act and creation of Insof. In the evolving process, Keter, Chokmah, and Bina form a trinity, from which emanates or gives birth to Hesed, male, and Hesed emanates Gvura, female. The next fusion, Heros Gamos, then produces Tiferet. This mystical sexual union, together, the Sephir of the gods continues all the way down to Malkuth, also spelled Malkuth, the lowest sphere of the Sephirot tree. Malkuth means kingdom and Shekinah glory, and whereas all the world, the gods and the Sephir are located in the spirit world, Malkuth represents the physical material world in which we live, and the Shekinah glory, or dwelling of God. Brought to you by the Barnum's Bailey Circus. Eliphas Levi. Eliphas Levi, Zayed, Alfonso, Louis, he's called his name, probably changed his name to Petra and Cardinal. He's a French aristocrat, poet and writer, initial pursuing an ecclesiastical career in the Catholic Church. He abandoned and became a ceremonial magician, professed knowledge of hidden things in Kabbalah and alchemy studies. Adaptation of the name Alphonse Louis into Hebrew. He gained notoriety as a thinker and a writer of the Orient and of the hidden things. The excommunicated by the Pope did not believe in tolerating Catholicism. And the essence of Freemasonry is the tolerance of all beliefs. So Metrodon and Sarhymenum are the exact same entity as the Messiah himself, the mediator, who is called Yeshua, the Prince of the Presence. So it is the Elohim that created Yeshua, but there's another God, an Ensof, above them all. So they have a Trinity. And they'll even say that Lilith makes her way into other writings. According to her legend, was Adam's first wife, made from the earth like he was. She refused to take a submissive role. She tells the angels to leave her alone, and that she was only created to cause sickness and death in infants. Other traditions hold her as the succubus, who rapes men in their sleep in order to spawn demon children. The Zohar says she's not only the first wife of Adam, but also the wife of Satan. She is known as a demon and a thief and murderer of babies. In Kabbalah, the entire process of creation through emanation is described as divine lightning flash from Ensof, the one above Elohim, which zigzags through each of the 9 Sephirogids all the way down the sphere to Malkut, the kingdom of God on earth. The kingdom of God on earth. And the Kabbalists say that in order to make room for creation, Ensof had to contract himself to a single point, making room for the worlds of the gods. This is called Tism. As a lightning flash descended, each sphere was formed, one after another, each serving as a vessel for receiving and containing the light. The spheres of light, the vessels, are also referred to as Vishams. The Shekinah glory, the garments of Ensof. But the vessels could not contain all the divine light, and this resulted in what the Kabbalah calls Shavira, the breaking of the vessels, and the drawing of the water, and the polyneuton familiares, and the rare homogram diphthongs. Divine light is no longer in its proper place because the vessels are broken. There's nothing that was not damaged at the breaking. Nothing's in the place appointed for it. Everything is either below or above, as above all being is in Galut. And this is not all. Into the deep abyss there fell, as a result of the breaking of the vessels, forces of holiness, sparks of divine light. It says in the 600th year of the 6th millennium, 56 to 18, the gates of wisdom above Kabbalah, together with the well springs of wisdom below science, will be opened up. The world will prepare to usher in a 7th millennium. They says to dislike certain ethnicities as racist. To see Jews as equal is also anti-Semitic. This means that when one says the Jews are just like everyone else, you're a bigot. You don't need to look down. Well, I agree, because it can be taken another way. See, I won't even get upset about that. That's like idle. But the other stuff's certainly interesting. It says, indeed, the perfection of the world that leads to the Messianic era requires the spreading of the 7 commandments that God, through the Torah, provided for all the nations of the world. All the nations, not America. We got liberty until the king comes. These are the 7 Noahide laws. Well, I got the executive, judicial, and legislative branch of government. It's called the Bill of Rights. It's enumerated in the book, Sanhedrin 56a. It says, since in the Hellcut, the descendants of Noah have been mentioned, a full discussion of Noahide misfits is presented. The sages talk about this and that and establish in courts. and the prohibition of forbiddance and the anticipation of others. For what reason? That's the SSPX. They're bringing out the Inquisition. They hate liberty as much as the other group. Who's writing this script anyway? Gamera says, and the rabbi went to do it. Just spread it around everywhere. Say America, and raise you red, white, and blue crayons. Have a toast. No, 91, he said, hey, we'll play with you too. Established laws in honor of recognizing, gave him a trophy. There's a SSPX and Pope Leo. See, you have one group in to say, all right, I'll let you crazy guys have a room at the table. You can have a voice at the table. Along with Williamson and Leo, and even you skirt-wearing bishops. That was pretty lace over there. See, they all want to play sides. I know what I'd do if I was Trump. I'd have to think about it a minute. That's what I do right there. We're getting to there. They're coming in. They're coming in. Running at you. There he is. Yeah, we welcome you, but we just consider you an illicit act. You keep ordinating all these people. And Williamson said it, though. He said it was going to get so bad till we needed to keep doing it and to multiply it and to have some hardcore crusaders in the end. And, you know, you want to sympathize with him. You say, I get it, man, but your core end is to take liberty from everybody. You're the same group. I just read Sharia law, Malay, change to Indonesia. I just read Jewish versions. And here's the SSPX. They got Inquisition wheels in their basement. They all hate liberty. They want to have a seat. I gotta take a break, get some coffee. That's it then. Oh yeah. On the good ship, lollipop, it's a sweet trip to the candy shop where bonbons play on the sunny beach, peppermint bay, lemonade stand everywhere, Cracker Jack bands fill the air, and there you are, happy landing on a chocolate bar. See the sugar bowl do the Tootsie Roll in a big fat devil's food cake. Eat too much, ooh, oh, you'll away with a tummy on the good ship. Lollipop, it's a night trip into the Bayou Highway. Just coming all aboard Candyland. I would stay young and chipper, and I like it with my zipper. If I only had a brain, I was young and chipper, and like it with my zipper. If I only had a heart, I could find my way out. Comforting with the flowers, consulting with the rain, and my heavy eyes scratching while thoughts were busy hatching. If I only had a brain, I'd unravel every riddle for every individual in trouble and pain. With the thoughts I'd be thinking I could be another leaker if I only had a brain. Oh, I could tell you why the ocean is sure. I could think of things never before. Then I sit and think some more. I'd not be just a nothing, my head full of something, my heart full of pain. And perhaps I deserve you, even worthy of you, if I only had a brain. That's an F chord. It's an F chord. It's an F. Life is sad, believe me. Misery will born to be a sissy without fur. But I changed my habits, never more be scared of rabbits, if I only had enough. I'm afraid there's no denying I'm just dandelion, a fate I don't deserve. But I could show my prowess, be a lion, not a mouse. Yeah, if I only had enough. Oh, I'd be in my stride, king down to the core. I roll the way never rolled before. Then I roar and roar some more. I will show the dinosaurs who king around for a king they better serve. And with my regal breezer, I could be another Caesar if I only had enough. Oh, I could stay young and chipper and like it with my zipper if I only had a heart. I gotta put that up. That coffee. Get the coffee. Get the coffee. So that's what they said. What time is it? It says the Noahide laws are for the Gentiles, but are to be administered by the courts. The penalty for disobedience, you have to go before the Pope, before the Sadrians, and before the Assyrians, and before the, who's the other ones? Oh, the Ammons. Includes punishment up to beheading. Anyone who does not believe in a future false Messiah is guilty. Anyone who does not believe in a future false Messiah. All Christians are guilty now. The first law about violating God's oneness is violated since they do not believe Jesus is God. Judaism has no Trinity, is what they said. It says a different set of rules started creeping in under Jimmy Carter, and later Bush, later Obama, Clinton. They all have a voice at the table. It's all right, baby. And consequently, in the ideal era, there will be no people who will believe in the division of the Godhead into two or more parts or persons. Only those people who believe in one God will survive the ideal world. And here's where we're going to need to stay on Christology just a minute. See? You go back, watch Arius and Sibelius. They said the same thing backwards. And then you get Nestorius, Cyril of Alexander, saying the same thing backwards. Is it two people? No or yeah. Whatever it is going to be opposite when it comes to nature. But it can't be the same altogether, because you can't kill God. So they play checkers and chess. But watch. The rabbi said, the majority opinion is that while Jews are forbidden to accept the existence of more than a single God, the non-Jew is required to reject belief in smaller deities, as long as one's authority at the top. The same goes with the idea of the Trinity. This is called shtuff. Shut up. The Hebrew literally partnership. That means that a Trinitarian Christian could nevertheless be considered observant of the Noahide laws, even though this is forbidden by some people, because it just said that they don't have a Trinity. But we just read that Insof and Elohim and Yeshua, as they call him, is actually the Materdon. They have a Trinity too. Now, let's just go back. Now, I'll cut to the front, cut to the chase and tell you. Not all of them, but those that argue, see, they label. Sibelius, Arius, Nestorius, and even Nestorius is not Assyrian, and Nestorius is what he was. No. But those oneness, call them modalists, call them whatever. They say one, it is God. Jesus is God. See, that's what offends them. They'll even let the Trinity slide. Guys, here's a trick. Now, I mean, you think you do it, you do you. I'm just showing you what's written. You do you. That doesn't mean you adopt adoptionism. That's a lie that no one has been the ones, and a few's been taken out. It's got to the point where even I don't care if you're Pakwa, if you're schism on both sides, wherever. to debate a oneness, just the grounds of the Trinity. I need to listen. They get into the holiness to where it borders lines. It gets in legalism to where they miss the heartbeat of it. Yeah, they start doing the buts and the do-dos. But just stay with the just only the oneness doctrine. Even the bishops and the cardinals, they don't dare debate these oneness people. They have history. They got the church fathers, and they can tear up Arius and Sabellius, and they say the same thing backwards. And for the first centuries or two, and they fought back and forth because the definitions. See, these people that get you arguing, and then they turn around and say something, and it's just been read right there in red, white, and blue. They do have a Trinity. And they can say it with a straight face because it's like you fall in a ditch. They didn't throw you in the ditch. They just had a hole in the ground. But this, for you out there, this is equally. We're going to spread it everywhere. And Islam's, they have a one higher. And when you have a Jesus, you're teaching a Jesus where it's, say, you can call it divine, however you want to call it. But if I have to do something on my part and there's a above, then even the Trinitarians can be Noahide. It is only the oneness who will not accept. It is the William Penn's, Stavridis, and equally the Arius and Sabellius and the early church fathers would not agree with Second Nicaea. It's written. They even did it. First Nicaea, they come together. It's only those that got talking and said, well, he says that he's not fully man because, well, duh, he didn't know everything. He's in this flesh and blood. But he got his power restored. Well, and then they say, well, he can't be at the same time. Well, yeah, they say they can do different. God is God. You can't put him in a box. He can be simultaneously God the Father and working through the Spirit right now. That doesn't mean there's two thrones. These people have two thrones. What's written on paper in the Catholic SXPX is considered another person. Entirely different than First Nicaea. That's why the P's and Q's and dotting the I's and crossing the T's is even this group says the Trinitarian Christian could nevertheless be considered observant to Noahide. But that's just one. But for those that say that they don't, and that said that oneness is the problem, I challenge you to go research what you're saying and what you're thinking, what oneness are saying. I'm not saying there might be some that's crazy, but the core doctrine is the original Trinity. Even if paid lip service, it says on another article, the fact is precisely what some theologians consider. And here comes the Pope Pius group. They say a heresy, or rather a group of heresies with the pretense of elevating and saving Christian religion and the Catholic Church by means of a radical renovation. Hybrid amalgamations and this and that. If this is what is entailed in the noidation of Christian religion, then it's not purification at all. This denial of the Holy Trinity and of Christ's supernatural redemption is impossible. But if the other has a Trinity, and this has a Trinity, and they're going to let you slide, they'll be killing oneness. Overall, it appears clear that a significant school of thought believes that Christianity is a form of idolatry. Yet, the rabbis will let it slide. But the oneness, I don't think so. Even if belief in the Trinity might be considered tolerable, they say, what about later? It says the imposition of the Noahide religion seems necessarily entail the persecution of the church. But if they want to have heaven on earth anyway, and they're legislating it from the bench, then they're both on the same side. With the Malay script, it says each instance has been considered as a foreshadowing of the final and worst persecution, which will take place under the Antichrist. Well, we need something. You know, they say, all schools of thought, a lot of them, they say that the spirit of Alexander the Great will be that conquering one come up, and that'll be the Antichrist. He'll be there. I beg to differ with the qualifier. We're going to preface that with saying that it is going to take an Alexander the Great spirit. But that won't necessarily be the bad one. That'll be the spirit that will cause this governing authority to rise up in opposition to the offense, to the resistors, to the saying no more. Because the camp that defines naturalistic and supernatural oppositely can never get along. In this part, we have seen that for many authors, Christianity is incompatible with the Noahide religion on the grounds of supposed Christian idolatry. In the next part, we shall consider the matter from another perspective and see if Noahide religion is also incompatible with Christianity because the former is naturalistic and thus fundamentally opposed to the supernaturalism of the latter. Well, if one is reliant upon oneself to help God out, that is the very definition of naturalistic. And to be totally absolvent of any responsibility on my part of justification before the Creator is what is opposed. They are opposing the supernatural element. But yet, if they defined it opposite, then where you left, folks? So a tradition of a governing body handed down from Noah create courts to view mind reading. They're calling that supernatural. That's as natural as you can get, relying on man, but the definition's different. As well as moral codes. It says it's been a major influence in many cultures. It's the bedrock of society. Ethical values. Well, I beg to differ, and so does the Athenian, Spartan Constitution, Magna Carta, Hammurabi's codes, laws of Erie. Said the Noahide laws found in the Bible? No, not as a definitive list. They're certainly not associated with either Noah or Adam. Are the Noahide laws congruent with biblical teaching? The basic 7 laws are congruent. Talmud calls for capital punishment for Gentiles who violate the Noahide laws. And this has led some to debate whether or not Christians who worship Jesus Christ. Well, if it's a little lower, then we can slide in our Insaf and Elohim. And rightly, they understand the feminine nature or the loving nature. But to have another one, you don't need another one. Jesus is it. God is it anyway. But because of just this, so thinking it's being mean and thinking that you got to not feel worthy, God takes us as we are. You know, they say, well, we were expecting another Messiah to come in here and free us from Rome or whatever. And well, he did. He did. He did. But you went and got in bed with Rome and just couldn't accept it. He did. You should have threw Rome off. Not embrace it. Says they're guilty of violating the first Noahide law. says the modern consensus is that Trinitarianism is acceptable among Gentiles. See? There's another witness. For those out there talking about all the rabbis and this and that, and see, it's not all of them Kabbalists, but it's gotten greater and greater for the last few hundred years, several hundred years. But there's a statement that's saying it is. They're going to let the Trinitarians in because they've already slid them over to where Jesus isn't all they need anyway, so they might as well be have a list of doo-doos and doo-doos. But I do challenge everybody, go listen to some oneness debates and just stay right on the Trinity and separate First Nicaea from Second Nicaea. That doesn't mean adoptionism. That doesn't decrease the divinity that is God in flesh. Jesus. It's like, who lifts Jesus up even higher to God the Father? Who wants him to have a separate throne? It's the Ensof. It's that Spirit. It's that same Spirit. Now, I'm not saying every Catholic that says, oh, there's three, because they'll say there's not. But that's not what the paper says. And the same people are changing their name Petras and Cardinals. We shall see. It says the Sanhedrin ruled that Trinitarianism could be permitted to Gentiles as a form of shittif. There's another witness. Should have never fought Arius and Sabellius, nor Nestorius. Alexander, Cyril of Alexander, see, the thing about it, there was two back then too. He was killing Christians at the library of Hypatia because they were fighting then. There's two different. There's grace and there's not grace. It says the Noahide laws may be compared to Catholic social teachings, especially natural law theory. I agree, because it's the absence of natural law. Both of them. And the Islamists as well. That is natural law, the American liberty and justice for all. That all this flesh and blood cannot be. See, morals and executive, legislative, and judicial branches is separated. That's why we separated. Even with the Barbary Pirates say, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't get us into that camp either. No, we're not those. Don't call us a Christian nation. We're Christian in the sense that it is allowed. We're gonna allow it. We're gonna allow the William Penns too. This crowd won't allow William Penns. Neither one of them. All three of them. Give me a Thomas Morton and the Maypole and the Indians and the abolitionists all day with the Thomas Paines. So just marching to the guillotine, in addition to the teaching of the law's punishment, violating includes death penalty. The death penalty as an indicator of a serious offenses. Say Jesus is Alpha and Omega and get them all twitching. Several Christian congregations have abandoned traditional Christianity, rejecting the Nicene Creed. Well, they done that a long time ago with the second one, and adopted the first covenant of Noahism. In the United States, a few organized movements have either chosen to reject mainstream religious affiliation and live by the apostolic decree, which they view as the original Christian observance of Noahide laws, and under the influence of Orthodox Judaism adhere to teachings. Well, go for it, baby. Go for it. Do what you want to do. It says the prohibition against idolatry refers specifically to idolatrous worship. Jesus is Alpha and Omega, and not to beliefs. In later generations, had to determine whether prevailing religious cultures, heresy in which they lived, were idolatrous. Since Islam is strictly monotheistic, but are they? Muslims have always been considered Noahide. Since the later Middle Ages, Jews have acknowledged that the Christian doctrine of the Trinity was not the same as idolatry, and they are also recognized as Noahides. Because you got the Trinity the way it's worded now, but they threw Arius out, and they threw Sabellius out, because they believed Jesus was God. Alpha and Omega. And so did Nestorius. Same person. Oh, it's going to be different natures though. So if they can get you sliding in and change your definition of nature, then we say, oh, it's a little bit different. And you need God, and Jesus here to teach you. He's a good and wise teacher. Of course, they don't say that. They just say, you need to do this, that, and that. Same difference. So we got the SXPX. Keep ordinating those hard Catholics. With Judaism is a matter of debate, whether all Christians, but they'll be lucky, they'll be accepted, because they're firebrands themselves. Considered Noahides, mainly due to the excessive levels of persecution against Jews, perpetrated in the name of Christianity over the centuries. It says, while Christianity appears to conform to 6 of the 7, reveals 3 major theological teachings, may involve and need some tinkering, equating the Yesu Nasri with God the Father, equating the Holy Spirit with God the Father, equating Yeshua as Savior. However, these theological issues do not fit the classical definition of idolatry. This is called disagreement. It says, other considerations considered least partial observant Noahides for Christians. The former are considered to share in the world to come because they recognize Noahide law. Does your Trinity tell you that Jesus is God the Father? That divine? Oneness do. They word it a little bit backwards. It's calling Jesus Alpha and Omega. Make everybody twitch. And for the other ones, it says that the oneness are out to get them. They're the ones that are, because it says they're the ones that are lining up with the one. Well, that's not these people's definition of one God. Because they say that according to this witness, ruled that Trinitarianism could be permitted to Gentile Christians as a form of association. Because they don't view that, because the worship goes to one God. And Jesus, Yeshua, is not the Father. It's what they say. And it's what the other one said too. And it's what the other one said too. But the oneness didn't say that. And they were adamant about not saying that. If one concludes that this group is this group and that group is that group, then we have these people saying that and these people saying that. I think problems arise. See, the childlike faith is good. If you don't know, it's okay. You don't know and you don't even need to know. You're happy. But when you start thinking and looking at the definitions, and you see, maybe I needed to know a little bit more about 1st, 2nd century and all these councils. and just what on earth was said around Arius and Bellius and this and all this stuff. It clearly says right here, there's a handful of witnesses, that it's the oneness that won't fit in. I'm not saying adopt all their other doctrines if they got any about not wearing this and not doing that, or doing this or doing that, or not shaving. I mean, listen, I know some that wouldn't want a man to shave, and they can do whatever they want to do. That's the thing. But if you legislate it, and they have their dresses to come down, and they let the hems out, and they wear their hair a certain way, and they wear this or that way, and they do whatever they're going to do, and they sing, and some of them don't sing, and some of them play guitar, and some of them don't play guitar, some of them dance, some of them don't dance. See, folks, this has been going on a long time. See, I just need to capture Archimedes back, Plato back, Aristotle back, Socrates back, bring them all back, and call this out for this Neoplatism that's not Neoplatism. And this Greek culture is not Greek culture. This is later Rome influence and all, and other Egypt and all. See, when they say one thing, and so you got a guy calling himself Spartacus, yet calling for communism and socialism, working for alleged this and that and Jesuits or Illuminati or whatever kind of groups, whatever, and coming up with this rituals. And yet they're taking on Greek names. Greek names never put up that. They didn't put up with that. Spartacus was a slave. He wouldn't have put up with the communism. But yet they named themselves. It's funny. You call them Eliezer or Ebenezer or Ephraim, or they got some historical name or biblical name, and you think, well, they mean that. No. See, if you think Alexander or Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Archimedes, they put up that, it may be comical, but, and they, to this very day, oh, they're just crazy, they're doing that, those are those people, those are those pagans people, those are those pagans. It's all Greek culture. It's just the Greek, there's a Greek, it's a Greek, they're just backwards, yeah. That's the ones that took up the cross. I'm not saying this culture. Yeah, well, these people, lots of these people, but they were all of a mixed group too. It's like the Malaysia. It's all mixed up in those islands. Asians. Indonesia, Asia, Malaysia, many islands, many peoples. Many peoples. They lied to you about this. You need to bring sexy back and Alexander the Great. But that dragon going to rear his head when this gets out in the wind. So the SXPX Catholic Church out and about, behind the scenes. Wow. Israel's hosting the first official international Congress of Noahides. And this and that, and a 5-day, and this and that, and training soldiers and leaders and everybody to get around, get everybody on board, and say, we don't need America anymore. You just do it our way. Unites leaders. It's a code of morality. By courts? No, that's not America. Then it says, a strategic alliance. Well, they great. Let them have their councils and meetings. They talk about what they're going to do in their house. They can paint their house purple and yellow as far as I'm concerned. Promote the codification into national legislation of the United States and cultural peace. That how dare you say Jesus is Alpha and Omega and Noahide laws are official part of the United Nations. However, non-government groups such as the Institute of Noahide Code actually proposed alliances with the UN, some moral codes, objectives, meetings and objectives, them fuzzy handcuffs, organizations aimed to align. Same people said they hate liberty. Listen to Bishop Williamson. Look at the ones he's ordinated. These people hate liberty. It's in their doctrine. Here's the thing. Here's the philosophy. Jesus said for us to conquer earth. We're here to make heaven on earth. And it's our job to beat our swords into plowshares and to make sure everything just goes just right. We'll just fix it all up, and we'll just have him, and we'll do it our way, and we'll call it supernatural, but it's actually natural, and then it's actually opposition of God's law of prudence, providence, and letting liberty, who sets free is free indeed, and keeping it separated, because we can't expect the same thing out of the 8-year-old. But we're still not going to put up with crime. But see, they want to do something else. Abraham Lincoln dealt with this. And I'm no Abraham Lincoln fan, because Treaty of Paris just told him to go F off. It was the nation of South Carolina and the nation of Georgia and all. But yeah, they get you tongue-tied. So you got the Malay script writing and the Udang, all dang literature. And we got the Trent Council and Second Council and Second Nicaea Council. And you got the SXPX on train them from behind. And then you got Leo up there saying, well, if we're going to let you at the table, then I'm going to let the skirt-wearing bishops at the table too. Hey, I applaud him for that. At the table. What's this say? They're going to establish courts of justice during the convention. Well, that's what the Sanhedrin and the Inquisition does. And the imams do. At the Kaaba. Hosting an event. So our district, see, we just go ahead and spread the irritation to everybody. Oh, we'll get on the atheists in a little bit. See, you atheists, that's what I'm saying. You can't say that the Christians were responsible for killing all the Christians were responsible for burning down the Library of Alexander and then killing with seashells Hypatia and the stuff that went on because the alleged so-called Christians were fighting amongst themselves and didn't agree on everything. Now, if you just want to say that one particular brand of Christianity is not Christianity, well, then you just go join that other Christianity branch if that's how you want to think, atheists. But all three of these groups hate America. Why they want you to hate America, folks? You forget your history. And they turn Alexander into some freak. Says it, Vision 2030. Focus on bringing peace and harmony. Like to teach the world to sing, perfect harmony, Jerusalem-based organization by other witnesses. It's a Brit Olam. It's Alliance. Most commonly refers, but they're going to let the Trinitarians in. Reform Judaism. As long as they do some Tikkun Olam. Social entrepreneurship. Power to the government. It says the Institute for the Code of the Noah proposes a strategic alliance with the Trinitarians and the United Nations and the Islamists for an agenda to codification and national legislation. Oh, be careful, oneness. How dare you say Jesus is the Alpha and Omega? Or that you just don't want to listen to any of this. That's really the only two groups there are. That, look at these people. They're going to end up calling them witches. And everybody will think they're doing good. That's what's written. You'll think you're doing good. That's what they think. How dare God be able to work and talk to a person on his own? Work his own salvation out. The Vatican set aside a quiet carpeted space for Muslim scholars to come to the library, but it's a separate, private place to pray inside, have oneness with the Trinitarians and the academics out of hospitality. Designated for visiting scholars. Just don't let them steal your books and burn them, put crayons all over them, spill paint all over them. There's some libraries in Iran over there that it'd be nice to have mutual scholarship on those. But the bad guy don't like that. Universal Center. With the hyphenated God that's impersonal and you can't know him. He's Insof. He's not actually in the Bible because Elohim created Jesus. But they have the Insof, third person up there too. That's the almighty, unknowable God. Androgynous. It's got the female aspect too. Oh. Look at him go. So when they get you all up in your hair, panties in wad, and they say, I only ask you to consider the authenticity of this intention. Purple hairs, blue hairs, and the trannies, and princesses. And then they show you this, and they say, oh, I'm going to go over there. And you go fleeing to the right. Thinking, I can't put up with that. I'm going to have to get down and do something. And they push you over there in that camp, get you handcuffs. These are master chess players. The other group is too. The other group is too. Look at that. I like it. Maybe they need pink ones. See? Got about the year 1000. It's called Gabriel. Gabriel Ibn Muhammad dude. Rabbi dude. 1058. He was called the Jewish Plato. What they want him to be. He's the most original philosophical writer among Jews and Arabs. Little known about his life, but he's got lots of works. Noted as being an early, if not the first, teacher of Neoplatism in Europe, or the Anastasiolosis variety. He essayed again the part played by Philo. Philo has served as the intermediary between Hellenic, especially Platonic, philosophy and the Oriental world. He had Orientalized European philosophy and prepared the way for its Christianization 1,000 years later. So strangely enough, the philosophical teachings of Philo and Gabriel were alike ignored by their fellow Jews, so they say, and parallel may be extended by adding that Philo and Gabriel alike exercise a very considerable influence in extra-Jewish circles. Of course he did. Philo upon primitive Christianity, and Gabriel rewriting scholastic medieval times. It says we service earlier Christian scholars, the Christian church, translated chief works of Greek philosophy into Syriac and Arabic. Translating things into Latin meeting was assisted by a Jewish physician who moved into Christianity by names and other names and David, and names being changed again. Important place as a history of philosophy. The first into Europe to reteach Plato. The citations of Aquinas. And he was followed by others. Thought to be known as a Christian scholastic philosopher, yet he wasn't. The other Christian in recent years, the Fons Fidei has received ample and scholarly treatment in the works by many. The key principles is that all created things are constituted of form and matter. Yet, if you say it backwards and listen to Archimedes, he said that nothing could be created by nothing. It needed something. So if he's saying everything has to come from something, if they're saying it in different orders, they're not saying the same thing. But he's teaching Plato first in Europe. And quoting Aquinas. And he keeps on saying that arguments over and over that the material universus is the substratum of all that exists. Many arguments in proof of the universality of matter as among his most original contributions to philosophy. He reduce things down to three categories. The first step, substance, God, matter and form, the world, the will as intermediary. He derives matter and form from absolute being. In the Godhead, he seems to differentiate essentia, being, from proprietas, attribute, designating the proprietas, the will, wisdom, creative word. This position is implicit in the doctrine of Gabriel. Others hold that Gabriel was an opponent of the doctrine of divine attributes. While there are passages in the Fons Vitae, in the Ethics, and in other of his writings, deduces that Gabriel's acceptance of the theory of the doctrine of divine attributes which seem to support this assumption. A minute examination of the questions says otherwise. What page is this? It says it's merely a textbook introducing Neoplatism. But Kaufman objects that it contains not only certain teachings not to be found in Plotinus, but others irreconcilable with Neoplatism. Plotinus speaks of a twofold matter, Gabriel of a single, universal. According to Plotinus, is one thing, and Gabriel, something different. So, a reteaching of Greek to make Greek be something that it's not. Plato, Socrates, Archimedes, and the first one into Europe was, well, he didn't change his name to Petra or Peter or Cardinal. He changed his name and talked to the archdeacons and cardinals, but it was changed his name to, what's his name, Gabriel. However, in many his essential teaching depended upon Plotinus. And he was quoting Aquinas as well, we'll see. Not directly, since the Enneads were not translated into Arabic, but rather through secondary sources. But yet the sources can't be found, we will see. The so-called theology of Aristotle with the commentary of Porphyry be shown. These last three Enneads of Plotinus, possibly in part the work of Porphyry. Another source was other sources. Not be overlooked that the book of Gabriel, which might have given clear evidence of this, is lost. Not any notes. It was never written. In the introduction, there's suggestions, dependence on Gabriel upon substances, and upon writings, and upon Plotinus, and upon Plato, and upon Aquinas. Whereas the influence on the Kabbalah is fantastic supposition. The real influence of Jewish religious philosophy and the Kabbalah of the Middle Ages. Kaufman gives three versions the excerpts, and these fragments do not adequately show the debt of Gabriel to pseudo, except that they aim to prove that all substance comes from another matter. Moreover, the place of matter in his works, there are different degrees. This is not Plotinus, and contrary to Neoplatism, according to what they're saying. So a different understanding of what Greek literature said. The Encyclopedia of the Brethren of Sincerity is clearly demonstrated by others. He's distinctly perceptible. It says, it's been argued with some show of plausibility that he deliberately set out to reconcile certain things with certain things, conception of Judaism. And moreover, viewed Neoplatonic doctrine that the Godhead was unknowable appealed to his thinking, and he made it so. But yet they left one to the unknown God, those Greeks. says, but this theory is contradicted by the fact that Gabriel, unlike other medieval Jewish philosophers who regarded philosophy as the handmaid of theology, pursued otherwise, regardless of the claims of religion, keeping speculation and mixing it with theology. In this respect, in his work, Fons Vitae and Ethics and others, not a verse of the Bible nor a line from the rabbis is cited. For this reason, little influence on the Jewish authorities, they say. Yet he's got 12 pages and 18 books. Accounted for on the ground of predominance of Aristotelian from the 12th century, and was accepted by the scholastics as a non-Jew, as an Arab or a Christian. Boy, he dressed up in a coat of many colors. The odor of heresy which clung to him prevented him great influence. All at once. But he got just smeared all over everything and quoted everything. The Jewish doctrines and the tide of Aristotelian turned back slight current of his new Neoplatism. He just merged them all, though, is what he said. Rewriting Aquinas, too. Let's say that Gabriel's philosophical, allegorical interpretations borrows the cosmos borrows largely from Fons Vitae in his Ethics and this guy named Gabriel. There's many others that took off with his work. He was a poet, and he knew it, and the Arabics knew it, and the Jews knew it, and the Christians knew it. There's people accusing him of mistaking a number of reasons for other reasons, and people detected in his theory identification of God that semi-approached Christian doctrine. And his mergence with a variety of a Trinity. But a different Trinity. Sefer Ziza and the 32 passed alike, and others. Remembered hundreds of years later, reference to Maimonides, traces of it are detected in Kabbalistic literature of the 13th century, so from 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th century, especially after. He was resurrected by lots of people. And as far as quoting Aquinas, he was known to, especially the works of Aquinas, and translating many other things into Latin and others, recognized. And he's referred to, was forgotten in some places, certainly his name. He had poems and teachings. It's forgotten by some, remembered by others, and quoted by others, and not knowing what they're quoting. That a knowledge of philosophy of the 13th century was impossible without an understanding of the Fons Vitae and its influence. So it went from no influence to impossible to understand this century without it. Regarding the work of a Christian philosopher. It became the bone of contention between the Platonist Franciscans, led by some that supported him, and the Aristotelian Dominicans, led by others, Albert Magnus and Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas holding in special horror the possible influence of Arabic Jewish philosophy on Christian doctrine. So Aquinas called him out, but yeah, he was quoting Aquinas. The first sure sign of direct influence exercised is found in the works of Dominicus, and he's just rewriting Latin and Plato and Greek. I wonder what kind of hat he's wearing. And Gabriel went from a nobody to a somebody. And he was zealous, of course. Says the main points at issue between Aquinas and he: universality of matter, spiritual substances are immaterial, Aquinas said, the spirit. In essence, he said the spirit wasn't a person. That's what Aquinas just said. But it would be in the First Nicaea sense, but not in the Trinitarian sense. But they will say it's a person today. I think Aquinas would be even against the person definition, if it's not defined thoroughly. Aquinas held that, made the mistake of transferring to real existence. If they can make Jesus be a real person and separate than God, only a person, and die, then that's not killing God, because no Christian would say you killed God. So therefore, it'll be separate, and you can still get your Trinity, and you can still be Noahide compliant. But don't dare call Jesus the Alpha and Omega, wrapped in a tin of flesh. But Aquinas said that the spirit was not a person. That's what it just said. Holding to spiritual substances are immaterial. Spiritual, the spiritual part. So when the body died, the spirit went on up. Oh, it's there. It's here. It's here now. I know this is inconsequential to most, but it's not. It's not to some, so it shouldn't be to anybody. They ignore the many countries, especially when they hold red buttons and Apache helicopters and TNT. They ignore the many contradictions of Neoplatonic teachings scattered throughout the book, they say, as well as Gabriel's failure to refer to any such work on the soul in the introductions of his book that he's using as references. You don't have a bibliography in the course, which he refers to other books of his which have not been preserved. He's just making it up as he goes and translating into Latin. So Aquinas had words, plural, with him. And it's interesting, some of his next works. Thus he continues with his animal spirits and metaphysical spirits and animal souls and rational souls, and makes a whole lot of story about a whole lot of something, nothing. And maybe if you can get your Zen and mediate divine to animal, in man and makes his intelligence master over his natural inclinations, and then he'll be wise. All kind of ethics. These people still don't have a Constitution, Bill of Rights. Why don't people do that? It's the choice of pearls. Oh, we're going to go to the other book, though. And he sat around and wrote a lot, 64 chapters of this and other volumes of that, and he was loved. And they didn't know whether he was Arabic or Hebrew or Christian. People just read his Proverbs. How he's retaught Aquinas and retaught Plato and retaught Aquinas, writing and distributing in Latin and German, volumes and volumes and volumes, in certain philosophy. In Christian circles, in Islam, Arab circles, and Hebrew circles. Into Europe, teaching Plato. With methods and interpolations that hadn't been seen before by others. With mysterious books. And calling things are what they as they were as they weren't. Work is no extant reference. A special work devoted to exegesis is not known as he even cited these passages from biblical commentary. And he inserted opinion into circles of being more rationalistic in interpretation, denying that miracles are more Sadian, Islamic, Muslim. That's what a Hebrew interpretation, that's what Aquinas said, and that the ass of Balaam really didn't speak and was just turning tables of his own. Even with so he vied for a more rationalistic approach. And occasionally had lighter moments, as proved by his poems and comic, his excellent satire upon a man named Moses, who had invited him to dine, but had not been liberal with his wine, and knew a critical edition of other poems. But this is the good book, the Crown Royal, Royal Crown, liturgy poetry of the Spanish Jews, religious poetry, and in his Kettermaket, or Royal Crown, a philosophical and ethical hymn in rim prose. He describes the universe as composed of spheres one within the other. In detail with Plato and Aristotle, and in certain his Royal Crown philosophy, the ethical hymn. He describes the universe as composed of spheres, one within around the other. In 1058, 1000, year 1000, Gabriel, Solomon ben Judah and Gabriel, didn't know if he's a Jew or Hebrew or a Christian. He's in there rewriting Latin and talking all the history and writing volumes and volumes and volumes and interjecting. We done seen geography, chronology, maps, rewriting Plato, and even call him Jewish Plato. That's like, what's that wise hop, whatever, calling him named Spartacus. He was not Spartacus, he was the opposite of Spartacus. Call him a Greek name. And this guy's rewriting Greek right here. See how it gets inserted? There's your another witness. See? There's your other witness. Even Aquinas called him out. Augustine, rewriting Plato. Augustine said they were rewriting papers, and they done got caught rewriting papers out of Greek. Truth fears no scrutinization. Bring on Porphyry, bring them all on. See, they get us fighting, and we don't know what's going on. Master chess players. You know, I think what they say, it was the deltas against the rules. And the rules lost. I don't know, I think the rulers won. Look at this. This ain't no more. Look at that. I mean, it's mockery. Greeks had women running Olympics, winning medals, giving them gold crowns. All societies. And they make, this is mockery. This is mockery. It's just mockery. I mean, you can laugh about it and be ha ha funny, but this is what they've been, it's hath God said ever since the beginning. So, yeah, you got to go back here. Mockery. It's called Jesus Alpha and Omega. Make them all twitch. There they come. Look at them. Oh, there they coming. Got him one. Look. There's more spawning. There they go. There's more spawning. And look, he did. Said he took leave of the Samaritans and Samaritans and ordered the troops of Sanballat to follow him to Egypt, where he would give them lands for guarding Egypt. Keep that northern Cyrene, those piranha Cyrenes guarded up with our libraries, and they'll give you lands afterwards for guarding Egypt. Alexander said, and the sucking child shall play on the asphole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the den of the asphole. The sucking child shall play on the asphole. So what's on the menu? Where are you going to go now? Well, you got it. We'll go here. The sucking child shall play on the asphole to put his hands in the den. There they go. There they go. I got him one. Here they come. Get them. That's what you need. Get the hellfire out. Get ready for the asphole. That's what they need right there. Just set them all straight. If you take care of the idol worship, they make the Greeks come out there and say they're building to this and to that, and they got the 12-titty Diana. That's not Artemis. And the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp. That's what you can put the hellfire in. We'll stick his hand in the den of the asphole. There they come. Right in the asphole. Look. Put the hellfire right there on it. Come to tell them to do away with the idol. See that right there? That's a stench in the nostril. It's a stench in the nostril. Make this land. Make this land. Make this land. What's an idol? What's an idol? There's the asphole right there. The pollinating familiars in the asphole. Put some hellfire in it right there. See what everybody says. Look what's in down in there. Look right in there. Oh, they coming now. Oh, they all going now. There. Look down in the asphole. Look at it. Look at it. Look down in the asphole. Look at that. There it is. There's the asphole. Look. Look down in there. Look down in there. Oh. The dead bones. There they are. All down in there. Skulls and bones all in the asphole.